Hello, listeners. It's been a while. It's Jarrod. It's Punch the Timeline. It's Exit Zero. Let's talk. Coming to you live from Punch the Timeline headquarters. You know who it is. It's Jarrod. How's it going, everybody? It's been a minute. You know, I kind of disappeared for a while. I was focusing on the Duffy Dome, my podcast about heels, and, heels got canceled, so here I am. My pledge to you is to do more podcasts this year than I did last year, which won't be difficult. Zero. I did zero. So we have achieved our goal. We have beat 2023, and it won't take much to beat 2022. If you're new to the show, my name's Jarrod. I'm the host and creator of Punch the Timeline. I'm a huge fan of comic books and all other avenues of storytelling. I also write a newsletter called Exit Zero. Before we get into that, a disclaimer. There are 80 plus years of superhero comics available to the world in both physical and digital form. Yes, I recorded this. Nobody has the ability to read every comic ever. This show will have spoilers for any books discussed, so beware. Pressing pause and reading the material is encouraged. You've been warned. Now enjoy the show. Let's talk of the newsletter. What we're going to do here is just expand on what I've written for Exit Zero, which is my newsletter, which is me being a poor man's Warren Ellis. But where did Exit Zero come from? Exit Zero actually is a place. It is on the Montana-Idaho border on I-90. I was driving from Washington State to Montana, and that popped up as you drive through the Idaho Panhandle. And there's just something cool about it that always stuck with me. So let's talk. But let's talk about comics, because that's why you're here. You want to hear me speak my piece about comics. My attitude towards comics has changed. I started the year last year with purchasing the Ultra tier of DC Universe Infinite. So I'm getting all the DC comics a month after they're released in stores. And the way I looked at it was I can read DC books on my tablet at home, and I can expand my knowledge of independent books, which led to me reading the Massive Verse books like Radiant Black and all the miniseries, Radiant Red, Radiant Pink, Inferno Girl Red, Rogue Sun, The Dead Lucky. And really, the Radiant Black, the Mothership book, has really been solid. You will open the newsletter, you will see me recommending Radiant Black. There's been a shift in my collecting. The thing about loving a creator-owned book is that, yes, you are supporting a smaller team of creators that are publishing something on their own, but that's a double-edged sword because you're not going to get 12 issues a year from a lot of these books. Though these people are human and, you know, they're not a cog in a machine, so you're not getting your monthly books because they got to take a break, they need to recharge, they need to figure out something. Unfortunately, that leads to kind of a loss in momentum. Eric Larson put out 4 issues of Savage Dragon last year. This year, he's 1 for 1. He released one in January, and I think he's releasing one this month. Radiant Black has a very unique situation going on where they asked, hey, who should be Radiant Black? And really, I expressed my opinion and gave my vote, but they're doing a unique situation where they're telling 2 stories at the same time with 2 different issues that come out on the same day. So if issue 27 comes out, issue 27.5 also will come out. And then you've got 2 books telling 2 stories about the 2 choices for Radiant Black. But with that, because they're releasing 2 issues, their books are coming out on a non-consistent basis. It's July, October, and December of last year. And I don't fault these people at all. I mean, there's some books that are taking breaks like Department of Truth. Crossover, for a very good reason, is taking a break. But you can say that my trips to the comic shop have dropped significantly. And I'm really hoping that these books come out more consistently soon. I know Radiant Black has a huge storyline, and Eric Larson, is going to be putting out more. He's solicited more books for this year. Also, I will say this because you haven't heard from me. You haven't heard my voice in over a year, unless you've been listening to the Duffy Dome. Read Local Man. Local Man is from Image Comics. Is a fine book. Since I haven't read as many books this year from the comic book store, I decided to check out some DC books. I wanted to branch out and see what people are talking about. I'm a huge Christopher Priest fan, so I've been reading Superman Lost by Christopher Priest and I'm going to botch this one. Carlo Pagulayan? I'm terrible with last names. I did not look this up before I read it. Christopher Priest wrote an excellent run on Deathstroke. Christopher Priest is a great writer. He pretty much can write whatever he wants and has a great spin on it. Here's the official DC Universe description of Superman Lost. After Superman is called away on a routine Justice League mission, Lois Lane awakens to find a complete stranger standing in her living room. The Man of Steel, home much sooner than expected, reveals he has, in fact, been lost in space for 20 years. Nothing and no one seems familiar to him anymore, and the timeless bond between them has been severed. Or has it? So it's a unique look at the Superman story. Always a fan of Christopher Priest. I'm going to reserve comment until I finish the series, but it's been definitely interesting. The last thing I read on DC Universe was How to Lose a Guy Gardner in 10 Dates, which has several stories from various creators. It had some funny moments with, Guy Gardner, the main title being Vicky Vale writing a story about dating Guy Gardner with the intention to dump him. It was okay. Decent stories, but I didn't finish reading it. The most issues I've read of any digital book this year is the Superman title by Joshua Williamson and Jamal Campbell. This book, instead of just moving on with the Superman numbering, they had to restart it. So I believe this is Superman Volume 6, because now we're just restarting titles like with every season or two. And I just wish we could just stick to a number and move on with it. But this book takes the Superman story that you know and love and gives it a little bit of modification. Perry White has had a medical episode, so Lois Lane is now the editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet. Lex Luthor is in jail, but Superman can hear Lex and he can communicate with them. Lex has set up things where LexCorp is now known as SuperCorp, and if Superman doesn't run this company, then he will fire everyone that is employed, so thousands of people would lose jobs. So of course Superman is going to do what he can to help people. I like that the book stays on Earth, and it has that great supporting cast of Metropolis personalities. It feels like if you took the Triangle era of Superman and put it into today's world. Everybody's got smartphones and talks about social media. If I was writing a Superman book, if they ever handed me a Superman book, I would stick it in the 90s and I would go with that Triangle era that brought me into the comic book world that I love so much. And my artist would be Mike Hardigan of DC Comics' Dead Man Tells the Spooky Tales and Squish and Squash, friend of the show. One of the things I've found in the last year or two that is very beneficial to both readers and to charity is Humble Bundle. Humble Bundle will partner with the creator. They will designate a charity to donate money to, and you can get PDFs of comic books for a low price. There's currently an amazing deal from Humble Bundle that has the massive verse. With this deal, you'll get 15 volumes of stories, including Radiant Black volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4, the Radiant Pink mini, the Radiant Red mini. You get Inferno Girl volume 1, Rogue Sun volume 1s and 2, The Dead Lucky volume 1, Shift, which is what got me into reading Radiant Black, the Supermassive one-shots, and you'll be able to support the Book Industry Charitable Foundation. This is a pay what you want. Pay less to get fewer items, and you could pay extra to give more to charity. But to get just 15 items, only have to pay $18. For $18, you can get all of this. And I'm here to tell you that $18 is a hell of a deal. I have been trying to get certain people to read Radiant Black for a year or more. So I'm telling you, if you've got an extra $18 and you've never checked out anything in the massive verse from Image Comics, spend $18, feel good about yourself because you donated to charity and you got yourself some great books. Let's talk about some television. Funny thing happened yesterday. I was flipping through my channels and I just happened to catch the last 10 minutes of the last episode of Longmire. And it reminded me that I need to do two things. I need to catch up on the books. I am 3 books behind. It's funny because I live with a George R.R. Martin fan, and everyone is waiting on George R.R. Martin to finish the Fire and Ice series. And here I am with a guy who consistently, every September, releases a Walt Longmire book. And I am 3 books behind, and he announced that he's releasing a book sooner this year than the last 3 or 4. The other thing I need to do is start a rewatch. And I might do that and tell you about it, because Longmire was a hell of a show, and I am so glad that Netflix gave it a few more years, and I wish they'd given it more. And one of these days, I'm going to get up to Buffalo, Wyoming for Longmire days. One thing at a time, I'm going to get those books read. Speaking of my favorite shows, you're in for a treat if you've never watched Northern Exposure. Northern Exposure is finally available on streaming for the first time ever. You're getting 6 seasons on Amazon Prime. I've had the DVDs since the early 2000s when they started releasing them. And the issue is that it took so long to release them on home video because they used original music, but they didn't secure the music rights for home video release. And then, things got complicated with DVD and then streaming. Good God, they didn't even ponder streaming because this show came out in 1990. So they have generic music on them, but I try to rewatch it every couple of years, and I'm in the middle of my rewatch, and I'm on season 5, and I'm not looking forward to season 6 because, I can't even tell you why I'm not looking forward to season 6. But if you've never checked out Northern Exposure, it's on Amazon Prime. I know it's annoying that Amazon has decided to charge us more money for commercials or to cut out commercials when they never had commercials, but it's worth it. And if you're really into it, I'm going to tell you a little secret. The legend has it that the Region 2 DVDs used the original music for the show. Sometimes the music on those episodes was essential to the plotline or tied in with it. So one of these days, and don't tell anyone I live with, but one of these days, I'm going to get myself a region-free DVD player, and I'm going to grab the Region 2 Northern Exposure Complete Series Blu-rays, and I'm going to start watching it again. That's what your 40s are about. Finding the things you liked when you were younger, and then just rolling with it. Back in the present day, I'm really enjoying Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is entering its final season. I'm a huge Larry David fan, and I decided probably a couple of months ago to start watching the whole series because I've only seen a episode here, episode there. So I'm simultaneously watching the last season, and I'm currently in season 2 on my rewatch. Run through and watch the good ones like Palestinian Chicken. But I find myself becoming more like Larry David, and I've been told that's not a good thing. As I said before, I am the host of a show called The Duffy Dome, where we covered 2 seasons of the Starz program Heels, which was promptly canceled and then removed completely from the subscription service. We had hope that Mike O'Malley could find a new home for the show, but if you look at all the pieces, Mike O'Malley has a show on NBC that he's currently executive producing. If you've seen the show Extended Family with John Cryer and Donald Faison and Abigail Spencer, that's created by Mike O'Malley. Mike O'Malley was the showrunner of Heels. It was announced that Stephen Amell will lead the new Suits Extended Universe show, Suits LA. I'm going to call that the nail in the coffin, and I'm going to say rest in peace to the Heels show. It was a good run. I wish it would come back. I hope I'm wrong. Other shows have been saved or been revived at later times, and it very well could happen. But we're going to move on from Heels. Again, I'm very proud of what I did for the Duffy Dome. We knocked out 12 weeks of podcasting, and I haven't posted a Punch the Timeline since 2022, so imagine me putting out 12 weeks of programming. Had fun doing it, got a really great rapport with the audience. So that's been a look at where I've been and what I've been doing. We're going to get back to the Starman Supper Club. That's another promise I'm going to make to you. We're going to knock those out. We're We're going to have fun and we're going to relive one of the best series of the 90s in Starman. This has been Exit Zero. Foot on the Gas was the name of this newsletter. If you'd like to read what I've just spoken to you about, you can subscribe at punchthetimeline.substack.com and you can check out all the things. I've even put some videos of my travels in here. If you would like to collaborate with me on an episode of Punch the Timeline or bring me on your show to talk about comic books, punchthetimeline@gmail.com. Now, before I go, a little incentive for you. There are people who liked Future State by DC Comics. I did an episode on Future State where I discussed my feelings on that whole thing, and I hated it. Maybe it's my inner Larry David, but I did not like Future State. And I have been on a bag and board and scan it to CLZ mission for quite some time. I refuse to bag and board or catalog Future State. I am staring at the pile of Future State comics right now, and I would like to give those to someone who would appreciate them. So here's the deal. If you would like probably 20 comics for free, punchthetimeline@gmail.com. Just say, hey, how about those Future State books? Here's the deal. I don't respect them. I will stuff them in a if it fits it ships box and send it to you. So if you just love Future State and want to have some extra comics, hit me up. I'm sick of looking at them. Until then, I remain Jarrod. This has been Exit Zero. This is Punch the Timeline. Check me out on social media at Timeline Punch on Instagram and Twitter. Yes, I'm not calling it X. I'm also available. Just search me on Blue Sky. Search me on Threads. I'm out there somewhere. I'm everywhere. I'm Jarrod. This is Punch the Timeline. I'll catch you next time. Thank you. Love you. Bye.